So I will call the Infrastructure, Transportation and Safety Subcommittee to order. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? And if so, could you state the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 3, which is delegations, and we'd have none scheduled. So item number 4 is report of the Manager of Environmental Services, and 4.1 is Drinking Water Quality Management Standard 2021 Infrastructure Review. And I believe the Manager of Environmental Services is on. So if you could just give us, we do have the reports in front of us, so if you could give us a high-level overview of what we're looking at and what we're approving, that'd be great.
Through the chair, sure, no problem. So we as an organization are required under the Ontario Drinking Water Quality Management Standard to do an annual infrastructure review with top management and as well with the owner. So in this case, it's the city and council. So this management report satisfies that requirement to the ministry that we review the information internally with top management, and then we also in turn bring it to council for their review and consideration as well. So this report just looks at some of the major maintenance and projects that the Environmental Services Department, the Water Department specifically, undertook over the last year. So some key points, we had 29 main breaks in 2021, which was significantly higher than 2020, where we had 17. But I think it's important to note that 2020 was actually the abnormal year. We typically have between 30 and 35 breaks a year. So, and to date, actually this year since January 1st, where you've had 14 already. So we're already on track to kind of that normal main break amount that we had. That being said, the benchmark in industry standard is to compare that to how many hundreds of kilometers there are. So we're actually below that in a sense, because that number is around 15. So, which is great. Another key thing is we exercised 600 valves last year because we initiated a very aggressive valve PM program that hasn't really been done in a number of years. So that was a really big achievement because that's almost half the valves in the city. So we identified a lot of valves that have issues that we're going to be doing some corrective work on this year, which always helps in the future, because if we have main breaks and we have valves that don't function properly, then we have to sometimes go back another street, and that affects more homes that might have to get their water turned off. So that's a pretty significant one for us. We also did a big Scada integration and PLC upgrade project that completed last year. So that involved updating our software, hardware, security. That was a very big undertaking by staff and our contractors. So we're happy that that's completed. And part of that too is our digital record keeping system has been updated and is ongoing. Staff training, which is a really great step because we're trying to go completely digital with our record keeping and document retention. So the further we get away from paper logbooks and paper trails where there's a lot more opportunity for error, the digital record keeping system is allows us to work a little more streamlined, which is great. And then we also did some upgrades at the Romeo Control Center, and we did variable frequency drive installations at 3 of our wells. These are really important for the way the province is going green right now, because these VFD installations, they increase the efficiency of the valves, lowers our operating and our hydro costs, because it soft starts the pumps. So they slowly ramp up rather than hard on and off stops, which is very hard on the system and it's hard on our hydro bills. So that's kind of one of the initiatives we're trying to do in our department. Is over the last few years, we've been installing these VFDs because we do have a lot of pumps. We have a lot of stations, and those are a big hydro consumer for us, big hydro bill. So yeah, that covers that in a nutshell. If there's any questions?
Are there any questions? I did have one question. I believe it was in one of these reports. I haven't got it open right now. About lead service line replacements. And just remind me, I know there had been a report floating around a number of years ago about identification of potential lead service lines on the private side and the public side, and identification of them. I'm wondering whether there's been any work around exploring possible programs that would allow homeowners, just a little bit of an overview of where we are with that, and what maybe at some point coming back to committee with some options around, or subcommittee with some options around a lead service line replacement program.
Through the chair, your timing is actually perfect for that. The director and I were discussing this week actually. So So currently we don't have an actual lead program or policy in place. We have a past practice that we've had for years. And basically what it is if a homeowner has a lead service from their home all the way to the main, if they, and this is consistent with municipalities like London, that sort of thing, if they undertake the replacement of their lead side, then the city will do our city right of way portion for free as kind of not quite a subsidy, but an incentive for people to do that. So a number of years ago, I don't know exactly how long, it was before I was here, they did go through the records and there was identified about 1,800 water services that have lead. Now, the problem with that data that I've found since we started looking at it is it wasn't clearly identified. Is it a full lead service? Is it just on the private side? Is it just on the city side? So we're going to be doing a bit of a review into that this summer when we get a summer student on board. That's one of the projects I'm going to have them doing, is really nailing down that information, because that's going to drive the lead program that we're currently working on. And part of that too is our lead policy and program that they're going to work on is kind of get in writing in detail, and to be able to convey that to the homeowners that, you know, this is something that exists. It's more lead awareness to homeowners and what they can do to prevent it, how they can, you know, what the city will do in turn to help them, you know, take on that initiative, that sort of thing. And another thing we're doing now is when we have a road reconstruction. So for example, Argyle, Mackenzie, those two streets have, from our records right now, quite a number of lead services because those homes predate 1952. So we're going to be sending out, like, we're going to go through our records to see which of those homes we think have it and give those people some literature to say, you know, we're replacing your service up to property line with a new plastic service. However, you might want to consider in the future updating your side. It's a cost to the homeowner, but at least a lot of people just don't know, they're not aware of it. And I think it's, you know, that awareness to the general public, I think is very important. So that's going to be a big driver for our lead program later this year.
Oh, fabulous. Actually, I only thought of it when I saw it, and I know that we had done, that Toronto has a fairly aggressive program as well.
Yep.
And I'm quite interested in this. And because I do know that Health Canada came out with a new standard, but it hasn't been put into provincial regulations. But I know the province is pretty soon keeps saying that they're going to go to consultation for decreasing that from 10 to 5. So we'll be ahead of the game if the city starts to sort of identify where our existing municipal side is and what private side things could be. So that could be what we could do to address or help homeowners that need to change over. So that's really great. So I guess the short answer is to be continued, and sometime maybe in the fall.
Through the chair. Yeah, through the chair. I'm hoping to have a policy or management report ready by, I would hope, summer.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll see kind of where we're at by then, but I would say at the latest the fall. Yeah.
Perfect. Actually, Councillor Burbeck, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, just further to that, I just, little anecdote, I did have the experience probably about 15 years ago. Our home was on a street that was completely reconstructed, and we did find that we had a lead service pipe. But it was interesting because when they were doing the construction, they came to us and said, well, we have the road open right now. If you want to replace it, this would be a great time to do it. They still said you have to pay for your own on the private side, but they strongly recommended, which I found interesting. They didn't say we had to, but they were strongly recommending it at the same time that it was being done on the city side. So I'm wondering if that is that still the case? What, like for Redfern and those reconstructed streets, that while the street is being done, that work could also be completed at the same time, which would make it a little more convenient.
Through the chair. So that situation, I think, would depend on, were you approached by the contractor or by the city?
I don't remember. I mean, somebody came and knocked on our door and said, you know, and they had, like, the entire street was dug up. It was a complete large pit. And they said, well, it's all open right now, so this would be a great time for you to do this work, so you don't have to dig it all up again. So right. It was almost like they were providing that service at that time, saying, you know, this is a great time to do it because you won't have to do all that digging again.
Right. So in a case like that, if it was the city, that would be great for them to at least make the homeowner aware of, this is an easier time to do it because restoration, part of your lawn's already ripped up if you have to do the private side. So if it was the city recommending that, they were probably doing it just exactly to say the timing would be really great if you have the finances for it right now. If it was the contractor approaching it too, it could be looked at as an opportunity. Well, the contractor's already here. Is this a separate project that they could be doing outside the scope of the reconstruction project? So I guess it depends kind of who approached and
Yeah, I think it was the city because they told us to get our own plumber to do it.
well,
So,
yeah, to get a private contractor to do it.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So that is a really good time, and that's why we want to put something out even ahead of time of the reconstruction, because then people can have that opportunity to get quotes, look and see what it would
Yeah.
cost.
I think some heads up beforehand would be really helpful for people because it's
Yeah.
already it's really inconvenient to have your street ripped up and then to have to pay extra for a pipe that's underground. That yeah, the whole process is not really fun. So the more heads up and warning and help that the city can give people would be better. I actually had a second question, which is sort of related, not really.
I'm gonna finish up on that one. I'll ask
Okay.
you, I want to actually add that the city of Toronto actually has, like, if you do it at the time of reconstruction, they pay for half. Like there's a program for homeowners, and I'm going to add that there is some data that depending on what the connection is between the non-lead and the lead, you could end up with increased lead levels because of that junction, depending on how it's done and what your water type is and stuff like that. So some municipalities are strongly encouraging homeowners to change it out because it could lead to like either short-term or longer-term spikes in lead levels in the drinking water because of the work that was done and because of the junction between the two different kinds of piping. Not in all instances. I think Ottawa's done quite a bit of work on that. So that's just a little sort of technical why it's right. Yeah.
And so through the chair, if I can just tag onto that, part of the discussion the director and I had too was because we do have a similar subsidy available for the sanitary during a road reconstruction, where if you do that extra work within 12 months after the completion of this, we give some money back. And exactly, that's something we discussed too, is could that be applicable in the case of a lead service, right? So definitely going to take that into consideration at the same time.
Great, perfect. So your next question, go ahead.
My next question was actually about sanitary service. I think maybe it was 6 or 8 months ago. There was a discussion of and a report on some insurance for people's sanitary service. Was it sanitary service? I'm wondering, and so there was sort of a municipal level opt-in kind of program. I'm wondering where that might be at. So
that was initiated by the former director and kind of was in limbo at the time of transition. So I re-reviewed it as well with the new director, Taylor, and I don't know if he wants to jump in if he's available too, but at the time it didn't seem like we did some extra research into it and to see how it would affect the city and if it's what really we should be doing right now. And I think because at the time we weren't sure, we were just taking a little more time to review it. So there was no agreement actually put in place. There was a proposal put forward by the service line warranties company, but nothing actually has progressed at this point.
Okay, I don't. From my perspective, it seemed like a great program, but yeah, I just as from purely as a homeowner in an old house, I think it would be really great to have that kind of program. But I don't know. Maybe the director has more to say on what his opinion might be on that service. But
sure, through the chair. After discussing in detail with the manager of environmental services, the initial capacity requirements to implement such a program is a bit onerous, and at this time we're short-staffed, so we may consider it further down the road. But at this point, I don't think we have the capacity to implement the program fully. So if we do get a full complement, hopefully in not too long, then that something we can consider further at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we do have a staff recommendation that the infrastructure review and associated documents be received to fulfill the requirement of the Ontario Drinking Water Quality Management Standard. Moved by Councillor Gaffney. All in favor? Opposed, if any, and that's carried. So then moving on to item number 4.2, similar and related. So go ahead, Mr. Rose.
Thank you through the chair. Yes, they seem very, very identical, but they do have a very big difference in what the two management reports convey. So similar to the infrastructure review, we also have to do the same thing with our quality management system review. It's a top management review, which also has to go to the owner, to council, in order to satisfy the ministry requirements. So essentially the same thing. Some key points from this is it focuses on the ministry inspection that we have completed on our drinking water system annually in the fall. And it also incorporates, we do an internal and an external audit of our quality management system every year to identify some areas for improvement, some best practices that other municipalities are doing. And it helps us prepare ourselves for our inspection by the ministry. So a really important aspect of our QMS system. So just a couple of points from the attachment on that. There was, from our ministry inspection, they found 2 minor non-compliance issues that were actually rectified before the time of the inspection. And then there were some best practice suggestions made regarding to some building infrastructure work at our Romeo Control Center and a couple of the water towers, which have already been completed at this time. And the external audit covers best practice things for record keeping, document control, which we're currently trying to work on through our digital record keeping system that we're implementing as well. So that's part of that as well.
Great. Any questions? Seeing none, we do have a staff recommendation that the summary report for the top management review be received to fulfill the requirement of the Ontario Drinking Water Quality Management Standard. Moved by Councillor Burbach. All in favor? Opposed, if any? And that's carried. So the next item on the agenda is the capital project update. It was circulated, I think, yesterday or the day before, but Mr. Crinkwell, why don't you hit the highlights for us?
Oh, sounds good. To the chair. Multiple reconstruction projects are already out for tender and many more soon will be. It's that time of year. 2021 project restoration is not likely to happen probably till later April, early May. Correlates with warmer weather and opening of asphalt plants, that kind of thing. We're soon going to be putting out our sanitary master plan update, which has been long awaited. Johnny spoke pretty well to water main breaks. The freeze thaw we've had recently kind of causes havoc. So we've had a bit of a spike there. Similarly, it impacts our roads. So many people might see potholes throughout the city. Public works crews are actively addressing those to the best of their ability. And staff in operations still remain in pods or in separate shifts to maintain safety protocols. And newly introduced into this update is the climate change internal working group. As requested, there's a bit of a highlight there of kind of where we're at. It's still early days, trying to figure out what the purpose of our working group is and how it will best function going forward. Primarily, we're looking to build internal knowledge and capacity with some other initiatives that we're trying to do in the near future. For instance, finding the best job description for the staff that's been approved by council. And that's my update if there's any questions.
Any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Gaffney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mornington and Vivian, they'll be back sometime in the spring to reconnect the sidewalk at the corner there, I expect, or maybe early in the summer.
To the chair, I haven't specifically heard back for that that area in particular, but I'm sure it will be, and I can pull up for the next meeting.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to bring up, you spoke of the freeze thaw, and it's been a very bad one this winter. Would there be some value maybe next week or the week after, once we get through all the heavy winter conditions here, to put a reminder maybe in the town crier and on our social communication streams, just reminding people of the contact to call in any concerns, because I know you guys can't be everywhere all the time, and you have to rely on the public to pass the information on sometimes too. So I don't know if there'd be any value in that. So
Oh,
thanks.
through the chair, absolutely, and also include that online form as well. It very effectively becomes a work order for our crew staff to go out and address it pretty immediately after receiving it.
Okay, thanks.
I have received a lot of feedback that when people use the online form, things seem to get done like pretty quickly, that it does seem to be a seamless link. So I know some people like to call in the potholes or the problems, but the online form really should be encouraged. Councillor Burback?
Thank you. Yeah, I did have a question from somebody about the TJ Dolan path, and I see it's on there for sort of final, I think it was line painting, and I'm not sure. It just, there was a bit of a drainage issue along there where it sort of flooded in. So I'm wondering will the contractor be addressing that when they sort of do the finalization of that project?
Through the chair, so I guess there's two drainage issues that might be spoken to for this project. The one is hard to rectify, and that's the winter conditions where ice builds up from the plow going through and it's nowhere to outlet. This is a bit of a difficult situation to mitigate on ongoing practice. I did pass on that communication to the Public Works Manager if there are novel ways to address this. In terms of the existing drainage, the contractor will be out this spring to provide some restoration, and we are looking at if some additional infrastructure might help encourage drainage in that area.
Great, perfect, thank you.
Anything else? If not, item number 6 is advisory committee and outside board minutes for people to read when they feel like it. And our next subcommittee meeting will be on March 30th at 4:30 p.m. Last item on the agenda is motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Seven. All in favor? Opposed if any, and that's carried. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a nice afternoon.
See you all in a bit.